At this time, I'd like to call to order the Genoa Township Board of Trustees meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. A full and accurate account of this meeting's audio recording can be found at www.genoatwp.com. Roll call.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yep, here.
Mr. Antoinette?
Here.
Ms. Goodman?
Also start again. It's all right. All right, test. All right, test. Joe, can you hear me? Joe, can you hear me? Test. Test.
All right, Leslie said go ahead.
Okay. All right, we'll start again.
All right, we'll start again.
At this time, I'd like to call
At this time, I'd like to call
the Genoa
to order
Township
the
Board of
Genoa
Trustees
Township
meeting.
Board of
Today
Trustees
is
meeting.
June
Today is
7th,
June
2022.
7th,
The time is 6:30
2022. The
p.m.
time is
A
6:30
full
p.m.
and accurate account of this meeting's audio recording can be found at www.genoatwp.com. Roll call.
Ms. Vaughn?
Roll call. Here.
Ms. Vaughn? Mr. Antoinette?
Here.
Ms. Goodman?
Here.
Ms. Goodman?
Also present, we have Fiscal
have
Officer Pat Meyer,
Fiscal Officer Pat Meyer,
Deputy Police Chief Russ
Deputy Police
Jabali,
Chief
Deputy
Russ
Director of
Jabali,
Roads
Deputy Director
and
of
Buildings
Roads
and Ground Corey
and Buildings
Flagg,
and Ground Corey
Police
Flagg,
Chief Steve Gamble,
Police Chief
Director of
Steve
Human
Gamble,
Resources
Director
Linda
of Human
Greco,
Resources
Director
Linda
of Roads
Greco,
and Bridges,
Director of Roads
and Buildings and
Roads
Grounds,
and Buildings and Grounds,
Robert Matthews,
Robert Matthews,
Director of Zoning and Development,
Director of
Joe
Zoning and
Schaefer,
Development,
and Township
Joe Schaefer,
Administrator
and
Paul
Township
Wise.
Administrator
At this
Paul
time,
Wise.
I'd like
At this time, I'd
like to ask
Mary
Mary Feskins.
Feskins.
Chief Ponzi's here as well. Chief Ponzi's here.
Sorry, he's not. Did I? He's not. Did
He's
I?
not on the list, thank you.
He's not on the list.
Also
thank
present,
you.
also
Fire
present,
Chief. Fire Chief Joe Ponzi. Joe Ponzi.
All right, at this time, I'd like to ask Mary Feskins to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We're going to go a little bit out of order this evening. We do have a swearing in of a new hire police officer, so I'm going to turn it over to Chief Gamble.
Good evening, trustees. I request a resolution to hire Andrew W. Bynorth as a full-time police officer effective June 13th, 2022. Mr. Bynorth has successfully completed all portions of our hiring process to include polygraph background, psychological, medical exams. Mr. Bynorth currently worked as a deputy with the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office with 1 year's experience and had prior experience at the Asheville and Reynoldsburg Police Departments. Mr. Bynorth also served in the Army Military Police and has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Based on this, I recommend hiring him at the B-step rate of $32.75 per hour as allowed in Section 14.2 of the Collective Bargaining Agreement, which states the Board of Trustees may, in its sole discretion, hire an individual as a police officer at Step B, in which case advancement to all succeeding steps shall be successive one-year intervals, and we have done similarly in the past when hiring officers with prior experience.
Very good. I'll move to hire Andrew Bynorth as a full-time police officer effective June 13th, 2022 at the Step B rate of $32.75 per hour per the collective bargaining agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette? Yes. Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Great. Andrew, do you want to step up here and take the oath of office, please?
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio, and will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer in Genoa Township, Delaware County, state of Ohio, during the continuance of my employment. So help me God.
Can you introduce who's with you tonight and who's pinning the badge on you?
With me tonight is my fiance, Ashton Metler, and then my two kids, Ryder and Arian,
And how old are they?
8 months old.
Okay, great. Did you get a picture?
I think you should hold each child. Just hold the kids like this.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Very good. We'll turn it over to Pat Meyer for the fiscal officer report.
Thank you. Just a couple things. I'd ask for approval of the regular trustee meeting minutes of May 5th, 2022.
I'll move to approve the May 5th, 2022 special trustee meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Yes. The only other thing I'll have these for your signature and review. The monthly status, bank reconciliation of end of month, April. All funds total $28,452,578.94. Our pooled investments are $21,384,211.96. And then our primary account is $7,068,366.98. There are no adjusting factors. Everything is balanced and reconciled. And I'll have those for your approval.
Very good. Thank you, Pat.
I have nothing else unless you have something for me.
I do not.
Okay. I'm
All
done.
right. Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up to public comment. Anyone would like to speak?
Carl Gephardt, 6796 Regency Drive. Well, tonight I'm not here to ask for your vote like a person did at the last trustee meeting. We used to discourage political activity on township property. But tonight I'm here in part, to paraphrase the late Paul Harvey, to tell the rest of the story. Last month, Trustee Antoinette wanted you to hear it from him first, the complete story. And I'm sure in his mind that is a complete story. It was just another one of my attempted attacks on him. So if after I'm finished, if Mr. Antoinette wants to dispute the rest of the story, then he can. Yes, I did file a complaint against Mr. Antoinette and Dynalab Incorporated, but it was with the Ohio Election Commission, not the Ethics Commission, as Mr. Antoinette incorrectly stated. The complaint was filed based on an entry on Mr. Antoinette's campaign finance report, a $2,833.33 in-kind contribution made by Dynalab Incorporated, an Ohio for-profit corporation. Ohio law 3599.03 has two important sections. Section A1, which reads, I won't read it in the entire section, but it basically says, corporations shall not make contributions to candidates. And B1, which reads in part, no candidate shall accept a corporation contribution. I filed the complaint based on 3599.03 A1, dealing with the corporation. The Ohio Election Commission found that Dynalab did in fact violate 3599.03 A1. A slap on the wrist, probably a bruised ego, maybe unfortunate embarrassment, and a $50 fine was rendered by the Ohio Election Commission. But since the complaint did not include B1, the part where the candidate cannot accept contributions, Mr. Antonette's got away with accepting the corporate contribution. Now Dynalab is supposed to correct the contribution to make it from the individual involved. I'm not sure if that has happened. No amended campaign finance report has been made as of today with the correction. I don't even know if it's needed at all, but I would think that someone would want that to accurately reflect what the contribution was and from whom. Ironically, the attorney representing Dynalab was Peggy Guzzo. You might remember her as the attorney representing GTRRD in the Benelkauser referendum federal court case that they lost. GTRRD was also a primary contributor and endorser of Mr. Antonette's. A coincidence, I'm sure. So the question for Mr. Antonette's is, if Dynalab was found guilty of making an illegal contribution to your campaign, how can you look the township residents in the eye and say you were exonerated and not guilty of accepting an illegal contribution? It's on your report, and you used the flyer that was paid for by Dynalab. A contribution made October 27, 2021, and had the complaint not been filed, March 7, 2022, would have gone unnoticed. It's unfortunate that Dynalab had to pay for something you should have cut. Not only were you the candidate, you were the treasurer of your own campaign. I mean, it's not like there were hundreds of contributions. There were really only 2 others from Jim Carter and GTRRD, and we've already had initial discussion about those, more to come. You would think Dynalab Incorporated would have been a hint that maybe a corporate contribution was being made if you knew the campaign law or paid attention to it. The only legitimate error was on me for not including B1 in the complaint. Had it been then, I'm not sure you would have used the word exonerated. Exonerated? No, it's more like you got away with something, which is defined as to escape blame or punishment when you do something wrong or avoid harm or criticism for something you did. You owe the residents and Dynalab an apology. Ms. Vaughn, I would have thought by now you would have known that when a reporter asks you a question, you don't have to respond, but it's fun when you do. In the May 14th dispatch article on flock cameras, it reads in part, Trustee Renee Vaughn, the lone no vote, says she sought input from hundreds of her constituents, most of whom responded that they weren't in favor, she said. At first glance, you'd think this is great, Vaughn said, but then I asked the police, is it a necessity? Reminiscent of the Genoa Church, is it a need or is it a want? Are you going to solve more crime? They said that they didn't think so, but they would solve it faster. I didn't think they were purchased to alleviate a crime issue because we don't have a crime issue. End quote from the article. In the May 14th article, I read that already. So the hundreds of your constituents, most responding, they weren't in favor of the cameras, yet you have discussed and provided only 2 emails during the public records request. You claim the county prosecutor's office advised you of something that kept the communications out of public records law. So here we go again. Hundreds of residents commenting to you on an issue you were voting on, and it's somehow not a public record. I was going to let this drop, but you piqued my curiosity again with the article. The reason crime isn't more of an issue in the township is because of our police department. But as the chief has said, it's coming. And by the way, what is wrong with crime being solved faster? I see 3 options here. Provide the response from the most opposed to the cameras as a public record as previously requested. Provide the law that allows you to hide this information from the public, or relinquish the attorney-client privilege with the county prosecutor's office, which apparently you alone have, since there was no board action to request an opinion from the county prosecutor on this issue. That way, the county prosecutor's office can explain the law at your next trustee meeting and how you can hide information from the public. 3 options, your choice. I mean, if all you have to do is to use personal or campaign email or some other communications to garner resident input on a township issue, on which you then base a township public vote, like the flock cameras, why couldn't you do it on any township business or any issue? Seems that several years ago, Hillary Clinton had the same questions asked of her about some secret server in the basement. And you call yourself a good Republican. Come on, you even canceled a trustee meeting Tuesday night to attend a county Republican reorganization meeting. The ball's in your court, but I remind you the spectators are not going away. We just want to be transparent, and we just want to know what to expect in the future. I thank you for this time and for what you're doing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? All right, and hearing none, let's go on to trustee comments. Anyone?
I have nothing, thank you.
Nothing.
I have a couple things. One, my June residence hour will be June 18th, Saturday, June 18th, from 9 to 10 a.m. at Hillmar Park. Also, I attended the Genoa Township Business Association meeting on last Wednesday, June 1st, and was speaking with a representative there from SourcePoint, who was telling me that she lived in the township and really likes our parks and trails and really likes the benches that we have placed around. But being from SourcePoint, I guess they have a goal of providing age-friendly just items. And so she pointed out the park benches and said that it would be great for people of all ages to have handles on the ends of our benches. So I brought it up at the Parks meeting on Wednesday night, and the committee thought it was a great idea, and Bob informed the committee that there's actually grants out there for adding handles on the park benches. So it just helps people get up when they sit on the bench. So I thought it was a great idea. And then the committee decided to also switch out the bench that we offer for purchase on our website and just have only benches with armrests on them available instead of just the plain bench. That way we don't have to worry about adding handles to new benches. So just a little update on that. And then last, I would like to thank everyone for accommodating my schedule in postponing the meeting until this evening. All right, anything else? All right. Next, I'll turn it over to Paul Wise for administration.
Thank you. I actually have two items this evening. The first item came to me this afternoon after I left for the day. It was a proposal for with the shipping added in for the completion of the sales of the totes for the recycle bin that the board approved a couple months ago. Leslie has completed the sale with the public, and the public has paid for their portion of those. And so the total number of units that she sold was 407 units. And Leslie's buying 5 more just in case there's any issues with ones that come in. If they're broken, she can swap them out. Or if there's a person that missed the sale, that could be handled that way. So this evening, I'm going to ask the board to approve a purchase order to Best Equipment for the amount of $29,158.
Best equipment.
29,000.
Yep, but it's just
Yes.
best equipment?
Best Equipment.
Okay, all right. So I'll move to approve a purchase order to Best Equipment for $29,158 for the purchase of recycle bins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? I have. To be clear, Paul, these 407 carts have already been purchased by residents.
Yes.
And the only dollar amount that the township is going to be responsible for are the 5 that Leslie is buying just in case. And the goal is to eventually sell those.
Yes.
Okay, just for the record. All right, roll call.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes,
Mr. Antoinette? Yes. Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
motion carries, thank you.
Secondly, I'm going to lead off introducing this, but I'll probably ask for help from Bob Matthews. Last month, the board approved a list of expenditures through the ARPA money. Also happening this time of year, at the end of June marks the end of our annual contract for supplies and materials and trucking. Bob's out to bid now. I think the bids are in. They were opened up last Friday for materials, trucking, et cetera. Through that increase in gasoline prices and everything else with materials, the prices of the stuff, all those things are going up a lot. And so Bob said, hey, during the portion of the meeting, the trail paving was put aside for consideration, but if the board ever wanted to review that, this would be a small window where we could get a better price for those items until the end of June, because the prices are heading skyrocketing at this point. And Bob will be able to talk about the difference in the cost.
The bids came back, we'll award them in July, but the bids came back for a ton of asphalt, it went up $11. And trucking went up $8 per hour. And paving went up $1,000 per day. So with that cost, I went back through, and on the 4 trails that were on the list to get replaced this year, additional cost would be $35,500 for the Route 3 walk path, $27,800 for the Center Green, $16,350 for the path behind the condos on Center Green that goes over to Park Bend, and the trail along Center Green from Tussock down to Spring One will go up $13,150. For the increase of those 4 paths is $92,800.
So we thought the board would wanted to at least have this knowledge, because the prices were going to be going up so much, in case you wanted to earmark any more of the ARPA funds for any of those trails. So we're just doing our due diligence to let you know there's some savings available if you commit.
Remind me, do you have a total cost of all 4 of these trails?
The 4 costs in the ARPA money was $300,000.
Okay. If we wait, you're saying it'll be $392,800.
Correct.
Okay. And this is, is this to repave? It's not to,
It's to grind them down and relay 3 inches of asphalt.
go ahead, Connie.
Paul, have we had any updates on the costs of the items? I know what we had initially were estimates, and we had talked a little bit about maybe as time went on, we could get closer estimates. Do we have any idea where we stand with what the expenditures are?
No, prices are still being made, but yeah, there are funds that we didn't appropriate and some that aren't going to be up to our estimates. So we haven't had a chance yet to gather all those in, but yeah, there will be extra money available for that.
And we have sufficient to cover the estimated $300,000 for the trails?
Well, you haven't done anything with that yet.
We haven't, but if we tonight decided to do that, we have enough left over at this point in the ARPA funds?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
Was it
some.
roughly 800,000 left that we didn't dedicate?
Don't quote me on that. I think
Ish.
it might, was it in the minutes, Pat, from the last meeting?
Yes.
He might have that.
Okay, approved purchase orders.
Wise list our payment and approval, following projects were approved. So, it's not totaled. Which total are you looking for?
How much did we dedicate? I thought we had around 800,000 left. That's just ARPA money.
Did they appropriate?
Well, it's not totaled, so give me a minute, I'll give you a total.
They added up.
While he's doing that, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Why are we milling and overlaying 3 inches on a path?
Because the paths that are slated for replacement are beyond repair and they're falling apart. If you just overlay them, they'll look the same way in a year or two.
No, I get that. It just seems like 3 inches of mill and overlay is extreme. I mean, on public streets, we don't mill and overlay 3 inches. Is there alternative we can do to reduce this cost and maybe do 1.5 inches? I guess where did the decision come from that it needed to be 3 inches? Is that yours?
Yes, we do 3 inches on the streets that we do, except for the ones the county overlays on their program. We do everything that is in need of repair, we do 3 inches.
2.8, Paul?
That's the total.
I know, total's 2.8, right?
2.9.
Yeah, so you're at 2.133, so 700 and, nearly 800, 767.
Okay.
I mean, it's your money. Are you prepared to spend that much more out of your ARPA funds?
It's our money. We decide.
Well,
We decide. It could go somewhere else.
You can actually, any one of those, or if there's one more, the worst one maybe even do, but it would be a savings,
The worst one is the Route 3.
yeah.
and it's the most used.
It would seem if we have an opportunity to bring these paths back up to standard, that we do it before that increase. It's not going to get any better. We're just kicking the can down the road.
And I will say that all 4 of them trails were put in about 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And have not had anything done but sealed. So we got our money out of the trails.
No, I use the trails. You don't need to defend the condition of the trails. I get it.
Maybe we could try 1.5 inches and see what it does. If the base, after we grind it, if we don't see any base problem, we could try 1.5 inches. It would be fine, but if you have base problem, it ain't gonna work.
Yeah. I get it.
But I could definitely try 1.5 inches first and see what it looks like.
Bob, the good thing is we applied the base. It's not like we go in some of our development streets where we don't know what we're getting into with the base. So we put it, at least we know there's probably 5 or 6 inches of good base underneath.
Yeah, like some of the roads right now that we're doing have no base underneath them at all. And when you take off 3 inches, the roads start pumping because they're on clay. They weren't put in with stone base. I know all the trails were. That's because we did them in the house and did it right.
So if I make a motion, 300,000, you're grinding and then repaving, correct?
Correct.
That's what the motion needs to be for. Paul, do I need to specify what trails these are for?
The Route 3 from Big Walnut to Lewis Center.
Okay,
The Center Green Path from the bridge to Spring Run.
okay,
The path behind the condos on Center Green,
okay,
from Center Green Park up to Park Bend. And then the 5-foot wide path that goes from Spring Run to Tussock on the,
that's
North
also on
side.
Spring Run, right?
yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll move to approve $300,000 to grind and repave the paths on Route 3 between Big Walnut and Lewis Center. Another one from Center Green on Center Green from the bridge to Spring Run, and then another one behind the condos on Center Green to Park Bend, and the last one also on Center Green from Tussock to Spring Run. Correct, Bob? Okay.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes?
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Okay. Thank you, Bob, for keeping on top of this, saving us money.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yep.
Next, I'll turn it over to maintenance. Bob Matthews.
The first item is a discussion about the McNamara Barn, and Molly McHale is here from the Parks Advisory Committee to talk about it.
Good evening.
I apologize for the late arrival of the packet, but I put on each of your desks the packet of all of the estimates that we have gotten from Hickory Circle Construction regarding the barn. The committee and Bob and Corey wanted to just bring you guys up to speed. As you know, we've been looking into what are the options for the barn that is at McNamara Park. Over the last year, we've been working to get estimates for what are the options. In the packet, if you still have it in the order, the first one is an estimate dated 6/2 of 21, and it's the main barn renovation. So this is the one where Hickory Circle came out and looked at the barn and gave us their opinion about what it would take to do a full renovation to bring the barn up to a safety standard, to make it a usable space as a shelter, rather than just a barn that just stands and doesn't get used, but to make it a usable space. As you can see, that estimate for the full renovation ranges from $150,000 to $175,000. Keep in mind that all of these numbers are all based on quotes at the time. And as we know, over the last year, numbers for construction have just exploded. So just use these as a guideline for this. When it comes time to actually make decisions about what we are going to do with the barn, obviously all of this will need to get requoted. So that's the main barn renovation. You'll see the note at the bottom of it that says that they can duplicate the structure for close to the same cost. So if you go to the next page, that one is also dated for June 2nd of 21. And this one is for a replica barn. So we actually reduced the size a little bit of the replica. I don't remember the exact reason why. Maybe it was a cost savings. I'm not sure exactly why. This is for a 20 by 30 timber frame, and then a 10 by 30 lean-to on the side. So the existing barn that we have right now does have a lean-to on the west side of it, so that would be duplicating that. You notice that it says open on all three sides, so that's where, that's the lean-to, so basically it comes off of the barn, but it doesn't have any walls. Essentially, it's just the roof. The rest of that is all of the parameters of what they suggested at the time for a replica barn, coming up to $155,000 to $160,000 for that barn. So given that the committee discussed, the parameters around this, what they would like, what would this actually look like? So we ended up asking Hickory Circle if they would do a conceptual design rendering. So that's the next 2 pages of in your packet. So this is what they came up with as a rendering. If you look at the page that has the 3 pictures at the bottom of it, the one that's in the middle, it's a little hard to see, but that lean-to that you see that's just the roof only looks clear through to the barn. So what kind of looks like a wall right at the edge of that lean-to roof, it actually is on the other side of the barn. So that's how we opened it up to make it kind of a three-sided barn, if you will, to make it look more shelter-like, and as a park shelter. So then, based on the renderings, the committee discussed, this basic rendering, what all we would want to do, what are all the possibilities of getting more light into the structure. Somebody threw in, could we add a cupola to dress it up, even though the original barn doesn't have a cupola right now. So there were several things that they threw out as kind of, what would we call our most ideal barn? We asked Hickory Circle if they would give us kind of an a la carte price list of what all of those extra features would cost us. They were very hesitant to do that. I think it had a lot to do with the cost of building right now, that they just weren't willing to put numbers to that because I don't think they wanted to be held to it, even though we told them repeatedly that we understood these were just preliminary numbers and it would all get, recalculated once a decision was made about what to do. So finally, they said, give us a sketch of what your ideal barn would look like. That's going to be the last page in the packet. And it is the one that is the kind of pencil sketch looking thing over top of the page that we looked at just a second ago. So that's the pencil sketch. You can kind of tell that the X's on doors, so we added in some faux doors. All of the doors on the barn would be faux. They would not be operational. They would be trim only, just to make it look like a half door or a horse door, a haymow door. If you look at the north elevation of the sketches, that you see the haymow in the haymow door in the top. The long rectangular between the half doors is a fiberglass panel to allow more light in. And then if you look at the west elevation, those rectangles that are in the roof line, those are also fiberglass panels with the effort to try to get more light into the barn. If you look at the east elevation, that doorway, those doors, again, are not operational. We looked not to do operational doors because we didn't want the pinch point if somebody tried to close a door and hands got caught in them. So that is a permanently open space on that east. So that would look through from the east into the west, or from the west and through to the east. And then the same thing with the south is equivalent to the north. That long rectangle in between the two half doors is a fiberglass panel. I did my best to add a cupola to it. That's where I really had to freehand, and believe it or not, that's a cupola. So then the estimate that's in front of that is dated 4/13 of 22. The committee also suggested that we increase the size of so remember, we kind of reduced the size in 21. It increased the size in 22 for this second estimate. Then down at the bottom, you'll see that estimate is for the barn itself is $215,000 to $220,000. They did break the cupola out for us and estimated a cupola at $15,000 to $20,000. The objective from here would be to really have some good discussions about if we were to replace the barn with a replica, what exactly would we want that barn to look like? Would we want it to look like the pencil sketch that's attached to that 413 estimate? Would we really truly want to have a cupola? Are there things that are missing? A replica barn, obviously we'd need to take down the existing barn. Some of the things that have been thrown out about taking down the existing barn would be to take the logo or the emblem off of the north side of the barn. That emblem or that logo is painted over top of a haymow door, which actually hinges at the bottom of the door. It's kind of a cool looking door, so if we could cut out the emblem and that haymow door, Hickory Circle has told us that that could be mounted on the inside as kind of a symbol of what the old barn was. Signage could be attached to it to explain what that haymow door is. There is also, the hay trolley is still in the top of our existing barn, so things like that would get pulled out and we could add those into a replica barn, hang it from the hay mow just like it was in the original barn, and then put signage about how it was used and educational things that some of our old barn could live on in a replica barn that is built to be a rentable park shelter. Any questions? Anything I missed?
Since I'm new, I don't know a lot of the
Yeah,
background.
absolutely.
Do you know the size of the existing barn?
I have it. I don't know if I can dig it out fast enough for you. I should have pulled it out. If you have other questions,
I
fire
do.
away and
I
I will see if
can,
I can
while
find it.
you're looking, just for the general public, a refresher, what is the plan with the barn and timeline?
We have done all kinds of due diligence on the existing barn to, see what can be done. Is it possible to save it? That was our first objective when we started out, was we were all about saving the existing barn. We got all kinds of estimates, experts to come and look at it. And essentially, at the end of the day, it came down to, yes, you can save and remodel anything, but at what cost and at what long-term maintenance cost would that be? And so then it kind of started to make us think that we really probably were kind of barking up the wrong tree, and we really needed to consider a remodel rather than an actual, consider a replacement, a replica, rather than an actual remodel. One thing that the committee has been felt pretty strong about was we don't want to consider just a vanilla shelter. Like, we feel like this barn has meaning to residents. It really plays to our rural effect in our township. And to take it down, there are gonna be people who probably aren't gonna be very happy with that. But the fact is that it's gonna be a maintenance nightmare even if we remodel it. So for that reason, we are really pushing for and recommending a replica, not just a vanilla shelter. Now, a true replica, another barn just like it is, it's just not functional, You need to have it open so that it can be rentable and things like that. So that's why we're kind of modifying it a little bit to kind of open it up and make it more of a shelter that looks like a barn. Mark, the main barn measures 24 by 40 and has a 14-foot wide, he calls it here a shed or a lean-to attached to the west side.
What's the lean-to? What's,
It's that, if you look at the,
no, I mean,
Oh.
how many feet?
14 feet.
Thank you.
A 14-foot wide.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to add that the Parks Committee has done a lot of work researching this, many, many hours in that barn. And I have to say that I was on team, let's save this barn at all costs, until I spent so much time in it. And one of the gentlemen that came said, it's fit for animal habitation. At that point, I realized that personally, saving the barn was probably not the best option. We would be throwing about the same amount of money into it and still have a structure that was old, needed a lot of work, and would take a lot of maintenance money over the years. So that was part of the discussion at the Parks Committee meetings. But they have done a phenomenal amount of work on researching this and discussion. So kudos to that group.
Thank you. And just for the record, this is actually the second round of research that the committee has done. Back in 2013, there are still two of us on the committee that were part of the committee in 13. And we went through a round of, what do we do with the barn and recommendations and that kind of stuff. And it just kind of fell to the wayside and the conversation didn't keep happening. We're really trying hard not to let that fall to the wayside this time. We would really like to see some decisions made so that it doesn't just fall down, because ultimately that is what's gonna happen, is we're just, you know, Bob's crew's gonna come in one day and find it just in a pile, because it just is not in good shape. And that turns it into a liability.
Has there been any consideration for selling the wood?
Hickory Circle has told me that they can get, he's actually said he's got a couple people that, in his mind to talk to see about coming and taking it down for free in exchange for the lumber. So obviously, like the things that we want to keep, like the emblem that I talked about and that hay door, that would all come off the table before they got the rest of the lumber. So that would be the intention. But that saves our crews also from having to take it down, haul it all away. It's valuable lumber. It's not hand hewn like the oldest of barns. It is sawed lumber. You can see the saw marks in a lot of the timbers. So it is valuable, but it's not the, what everybody, like all the barn builders are craving, getting.
So just for clarification, you might ask them, it looks like maybe it's just a typo, but they have the same size of the concrete pad for the 30 by 35 building that they do for the.
I noticed that
Oh, you
tonight.
did?
Yeah, I noticed that. I think they just probably missed
Carried it over.
increasing that size by that extra, what's it missing, 20-some feet?
So then that means that the lean-to will just have no concrete?
No, it would have concrete. I think that's just a typo. I think they just missed, I think they took the original estimate and just went through and made the changes, and they just missed making that change.
Okay, well, it's
The
10
20
by 30 on the 20 by 30.
Oh. 10 by 30. Oh, I see what you
We
mean.
don't want that just to be natural ground.
Yep. Yeah, it would be concrete underneath the barn and the lean-to. So we just wanted to bring this in front of you just to give you an update about where we are, keep the conversation going about, what the considerations can be. We've talked about the possibility of budgeting this out in the next levy renewal. So we're already halfway through our first levy, which was a 3-year. So it would be up for vote in 23 and start in 24. So we would like to try to budget in the next cycle for doing something with the barn. So we just want to keep the conversations going for the possibility that some decisions can actually be made.
Very good.
Any questions?
Anyone else? No, thank you,
All right.
Molly. Thank you for
Thank you.
keeping this
We appreciate it.
front and center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Next, Bob.
Moving on, a resolution for supplemental appropriations.
Good, I'll move to approve the following supplemental appropriations. Road and Bridge from 750-0000 for the amount of $70,000 to account 2031-330-360-0000 for the amount of $70,000. The Parks Fund from 2171-760-740-0000 for the amount of $15,000 to 2171-610-360-0000 for the amount of $15,000. And also from account 2171-610-420-0000 for the amount of $21,500 to account number 2171-610-360-0000 for the amount of $21,500. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Bob, can you tell us what the,
This is all money that was budgeted It's to pay for the purchase orders we're going to talk about in the next resolution.
Very good, thank you. Roll call?
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes,
Mr. Antoinette? Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
motion carries, thank you. Next, purchase order?
Yeah, a resolution for purchase orders, and after you make it, I can answer any questions.
Okay, I'll move to approve the following blanket purchase orders: $35,000 for the Gateway Project, $90,000 for road resurfacing, $10,000 for miscellaneous operating supplies. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Discussion? Explain away.
The Gateway project is, we're getting close to being done. We started putting the veneer on the wall today, and the sign will be put on probably next week. And this is just money that I did not appropriate or ask for a PO for. It's the start of the year.
Okay,
The 90,000 for road resurfacing, I have contracted more stuff out this year because I didn't have the personnel to drive trucks. So, and we have two roads right now that we milled down 3 inches and they're falling apart. We're gonna have to dig them out. I'm guessing the 90,000 will be enough. I hope it is, but the one road is Cypress Court, and the other way is Bentley Place. If you guys want to drive by there and look at it, you'll see where the road, it's got a lot of water in it, and it started pumping mud. And 10,000 is just a blanket PO for miscellaneous stuff, concrete, stone, whatever we need.
okay, thank you. Any other questions, discussion?
Just, there is in our packet a purchase order for the fence for pickleball. Is that
That'll be
on the
next.
agenda?
Yeah, it's on
Oh, it
down.
is? Okay.
Next one.
Roll call?
Any questions?
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Motion carries, thank you.
Next is a purchase order to Paul Peterson, who I bought the pickleball fence off of, that they're anticipating the fence to be in within the next week or two, and then installed right after that.
All right, I'll move to approve the purchase order to Paul Peterson in the amount of $28,500 for a pickleball court fence. Do I have a second?
Second?
Very good, discussion. Bob, are they installing or are you installing?
They are
Okay,
installing.
very good. Anybody else? All right, roll call.
Vaughn?
Yes,
Mr. Antoinette? Yes. Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
all right, motion carries.
The next one is a resolution for all our summer help that we've got so far to hire them.
All right, I'll move to hire the following as a seasonal laborer with the Parks Department. Luke Weithman, effective 5/10/2022 at $18 per hour. Thomas Bobvnik, thank you, effective May 16th, 2022 at $18 per hour. Dylan Helmers, effective 6/7/2022 at $18 per hour. And Aiden Seger, effective 6/27/2022 at $18 per hour. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion?
This is, gives us 4. How many was our goal?
Actually, one of them is also only working like 24 to 32 hours.
Okay.
I had one other that could do part-time, but he actually found something else. So I think this is probably going to be it.
Okay.
There may be one more if I can find one that would fit.
Okay. So 5 would be our goal, is what you're telling me?
Would be the max.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Roll call?
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes,
Mr. Antoinette? Yes. Ms. Goodman?
motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next, we'll turn it over to Chief Gamma with Police.
Good evening again. At the last trustee meeting, you approved us purchasing a shooting simulator for $40,000 through the ARPA funds. Afterwards, as we started researching particular simulators, we weren't really finding what we were looking for. And also, as we talked more and talked to some of our tech people, we discovered really what is a greater need than the shooting simulator, and that's the need to replace 10 cruiser laptop computers. These are computers that the officers use every day to do everything with, report writing, and just about everything they do, they use them for. Currently, 3 of the computers are 6 or 7 years old at least, and then the rest are 5 years old or more. We're starting to have some problems with them. The touch screen is malfunctioning on numerous computers. They're getting that age with computers that they're just out of date, difficult to update, and as with any product, it gets to the point where you just have to buy a new product. So what we're asking to do is, instead of buying the shooting simulator for $40,000, buy the 10 cruiser computers for approximately $38,970. So it's basically a swap of the purchase on that. I don't know that if you need to do a resolution or not on that, since you already approved it.
I think we need to amend our motion, correct, Paul? Yes. Okay, you said for the computers, $38,970?
Yeah, the quote I have is $38,970. That does not include installation. That
Okay.
would be separate. And these have, new computers have a 5-year warranty.
That would put us up to having $768,000 sitting over here because he's giving us $1,000 back.
Okay.
Save the township
Thanks.
money.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Pat.
it. Not for the township.
All right, go ahead.
If this does not include installation, are we installing them at no cost, just time, or is someone else doing this?
We'll get PAR to come up, but I don't think it'll be an exorbitant cost. And we have money in our budget to handle the installation.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. So I'll move to amend the list of ARPA money that was approved at the last trustee meeting. Is it May 5th?
Yes.
May 5th, 2022, to remove the shooting simulator at $40,000 and add the purchase of 10 police cruiser computers at the cost of $38,970. Do I have a second?
Second?
Is that good, Paul? All right. Discussion? Any more discussion? Roll call? Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item I have is a request for education supplement incentive for Officer Joseph Washington, one of our newer officers. He has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in sociology and criminology from Ohio University, so he would receive $1 an hour per the collective bargaining agreement. And it's my
14.11 in the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association Union Agreement in the amount of $1 an hour for a bachelor's degree effective June 7th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
And I have one other item, and it's not on the agenda, but I wanted to give you an update on our traffic enforcement. Obviously, speed is, and speeding in the neighborhoods is probably the #1 complaint we get from our residents, especially during the summer. And right now, we're at that period where we're getting complaints everywhere. And we're doing our best to manage how we put the enforcement out. We only have so many officers. We have more speeding complaints than we have officers, so we're trying to manage that, particularly with the construction on Worthington Road. We've put a big emphasis on some of the detour routes to the neighborhoods on that. But what I'd like to do is Lieutenant McMillan coordinates all of our traffic enforcement and collects the statistics on that. So I'd like him to come up and just give you some information, about 3 to 5 minutes worth of how we do that. So, LT?
Good evening, Board. Like the chief said, we just thought with the complaints that have been coming in, particularly, I think it was last meeting, there was a resident that complained about the speed. We thought it'd be nice to give you guys an overview along with the citizens that are listening, what we do. So as the chief said, I take all the complaints and I try to compile them with as much information as I can and keep a spreadsheet. And I'll take like times, time of days, if they have specific complaints, sometimes they'll come through and they're very specific. It's the paper person at 3 a.m. on Tuesdays. That really helps out. So we'll log all of that, and I keep a running database. I think it was last year, we purchased a program called Frontline, and it allows us to then put our complaints in a real-time database, web-based. It's out in all of our cruisers with the computers that we just talked about, and the officers can go through and they can see the complaints, the areas, the time of days, and that type of thing. And again, it's a real-time update. The officers are required to complete directed patrol daily. This is besides just standard patrols, their calls, and those type of things. These are, again, very specific to times and areas. They're required to log where they've been, the hours they spent there, and then data such as how many cars did they see, the speeds, if any, that they're seeing, how many stops they've made, cites versus warnings, and some other information like that. And then from there, we can take it with all the updating and try to base where do we need to be based on the complaints, our observations, the cars that we see, and we move around. Right now, we have about 40 areas that we consider high areas for directed patrol. Areas like Mount Royal, St. Andrews, Highland Lakes Avenue, our long streets, they're only considered one. So we might have multiple areas in there, but we don't try to break it down east, west, north, south. So right now, we're running about 40 different areas. And then lastly, also, I wanted to mention that we do have 3 electronic speed signs. With that being said, 2 we had recently ordered, and the company is very slow about getting the programming up and running for us. The same company does our maintenance on the one that we've had, and it's been broke. So I'm hoping by the end of the month, all 3 will be up and running. The speed signs, besides displaying your speed is, which is what all the public sees, and that's what they want. It also, again, runs real-time data, sends it to me, and it uploads. So I can also see, based off the speeds, what are the officers seeing, what are the complaints that we're getting, what's the speed sign registering? And that helps us kind of control where do we focus on, how much do we move around with it, and where do we need to put things. So not a perfect science, but that's what we try to do to register and keep track of all the complaints that we run through. Any questions?
On the your speed is sign, does it tell you what your speed should be? Is there a sign above it that says it's 25, 35?
So sometimes we do that, but that's kind of the old school sign. So what we would do is we would attach it, or it would be on a cart to where we could carry it around. What our speed signs have been, that we do now is it flashes. So if it's 25 and I think Miller, who sets it for me, sets it at 3 over. So at 28, the speed sign starts giving you that strobe flash along with the speed sign flashing. So while it doesn't say speed is 25, you're in a neighborhood, and at 28, it's flashing all over the place at you is what we've been doing recently. He tries to put them on a speed sign, on an actual speed sign, but again, if we're looking to get someplace right at south of Medallion on Sunbury, we might not have a speed sign until darn near Maxtown, and we want to get that up a little further north. So sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Have you noticed when you have the speed sign out, do your stats show that traffic over time slows down in that area? No effect? Increase?
We normally run them, so the old signs had a single battery, they'd run about a week.
Okay.
So you really have a hard time running a long data. What we find 93 to 95% of the time is the speeds are what they should be. In all reality, and I have all that data to back it up, that if we're in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, the majority of your cars, your average speed would normally be between, let's say it's a 35, your average speed is usually between 33 to maybe 36 miles an hour, and and it runs hourlies for us too, so you'll get, during rush hour, you might get one car doing 45 miles an hour, but not very often. So we don't leave them up long enough to run like a month-long study to see where they go with it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Board.
I can testify it works. Definitely works for me.
All right, next we have Joe Schaefer with zoning.
Good evening, trustees. 2 items on the agenda for you, and I'm going to enlist Mr. Myers here to see if he can take one and pass it down.
Sure. Is there one for me as well?
Yes. So the 2 items on the agenda are, number 1, the results from the RFQ that the board asked me to put out.
several weeks ago. And then number two, the continued hearing for the Hoover watershed overlay. I didn't know if the board maybe wanted to enter the overlay hearing, formally open that first, and then discuss the RFQ, since they're fairly related to one another, or if you wanted to discuss the RFQ first, maybe see what you want to do there, and then we can open the formal hearing for the watershed. So defer to the board.
So are you saying if we open up the Hoover watershed, can we discuss the RFQ during that?
I think you can, it just allows you to sort of talk about
Okay.
both,
Okay,
and
all right.
incorporates the RFQ discussion into the
Fine.
watershed. Or we can, if you want to just talk about the RFQ and your thoughts and what you may or may not want to do, then you'll have that information when we open the watershed hearing. I think the purpose of the watershed hearing tonight, though, was to sort of see what happened with the RFQ,
Yeah.
and then determine a path forward.
Well, let's just, if everybody's okay, let's just discuss the RFQ then,
Sure.
and then.
You want me to just give a brief
Yeah.
presentation?
Yep.
So what I pass out to you are my scoring sheets. We received 3 responses back. One from the firm Metz, Bailey, and McLaughlin, that is down in Westerville. One from Bricker and Eckler, they are in Columbus. And another from Reinhardt Legal Services with a post office box in Columbus. So I honestly thought we'd maybe get a couple more than this, but 3 is still a good number and for comparisons purposes. So I'm not going to belabor every single score that we listed on the sheet. There was obviously 12 points of criteria. I tried to review each document very objectively and tried to block out any prior knowledge I had of any of these individuals or firms, and tried to just review what was presented in their materials. So when I did that, and I also had each one of my team members independently did it, and then we met, and I know Mr. Wise has also had, I don't believe he scored it, but he's also had the opportunity to look it over, and he and I discussed as well. So with that, I can tell you in terms of the scoring, the top 2 I had, and they were very close, within 3 points of one another, were Metz, Bailey, McLaughlin, and Bricker and Eckler. Scoring at 49 and 46 points respectively. So I'll go into as much detail or stay as high level as you want. I think I'll let the board sort of dictate how you like this discussion to move forward.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the other board members thought of the applicants.
So I'll start, if you don't mind. No? I did review them. I think we should note that Bill McLaughlin is a resident of Genoa. Don't know if that matters or not.
I don't know that.
They look like they're qualified as a team. I'm not sure why they're dragging in 2 consultants. I'm guessing it's because they really aren't qualified. If you look at the group as a whole, then it looks like they get some credibility. That concerns me a little bit. And with this one, I don't think they identified, I would like to see each of them identify who the lead is, who was going to be here, who are we going to be dealing with, instead of having people jumping in and out. We all know Bricker and Eckler, well-established firm downtown. Reinhardt looks like he might be kind of a little bit of a lone wolf. I'm not sure if he's got a big staff or not. Couldn't tell from his submittal. And that's really all I'd like to have. I'd like to go through this and score myself with this criteria before we make a decision.
That's fine. Do you have any history with them working for a township? Or
None
you
of
don't
these.
know? Yeah, obviously I don't know. Just was curious with your profession if you've
Yeah.
come across them. All right, Connie.
My turn, huh? I know none of these 3 firms. I did not know that Mr. McLaughlin was a resident of Genoa
I
Township,
didn't
so
either.
there's no bias either way there. When I read through their packets, I was impressed with the materials that were presented by Metz, Bailey, et cetera, as well as Bricker and Eckler. They gave specific examples of what they did, where they've done it. places that if we were interested, we could call, check how they, get a reference kind of point. I did not get that same feeling from Reinhardt. There was a simple two-page letter. It said, this is what I can do. It gave us no references to what they have done, if they've defended anything. I just felt that there was a lot lacking on that one. So as far as the ratings go, I pulled out the RFQ materials and looked at what they were, but I did not score them with the detail that the zoning folks have done. But I would say that from my going through these materials a couple times, I would agree that there are two very competitive ones and a third.
Just to be transparent, I think it was Bill McLaughlin that did my will, but I didn't even know they did this, and that's the only interaction I've had with them. And then one of their partners is friends of my sister. So anyway, but I didn't know they did zoning. I didn't know they were, so not that that's going to matter, but I want to put that out there, that I do
I
have
don't
those.
think they do much zoning if you
That's-
look at
I
their
thought
company.
the same. I didn't
their
even think they
firm.
did zoning. They did my will, right? So I didn't think they were zoning related. But I do think that they have outsourced this zoning, so I'm not sure they do. This Bricker and Eckler, according to their information, they've given presentations at the OTA conference. I can't even recall if I've attended one. Maybe I did. Yeah, that's what it said. I did call two of their references today. The Village of Galena, they had put down for a reference, and also Liberty Township. So I contacted both of those municipalities. They had nothing but positive things to say about them, although neither one used them for zoning resolution or comprehensive plan. It was more economic development. So TIFs, JEDs, developing business parcels. So I didn't see a whole lot of information that they've helped anyone with their zoning resolution or comprehensive plan. It was a different type of zoning. I don't know that that matters. Just in speaking with Reinhardt, I know that he's worked with Concord Township and Berlin Township. Those could be references. I'm not sure why he didn't put those on there, but he does. And then I found out today he represents a trustee in Liberty Township personally, so I didn't know that either until I spoke with Liberty Township today. So that's all I know. But I too, I printed out the RFQs, but I didn't rate them either. So I don't know where we want to go at this point.
I don't think there's anything preventing us if there's, Paul, if there's follow-up questions we have for any of these individuals or anything
Well,
precluding us from.
if the board favors one of these over the other two, then what you do is bring them in and then start talking potentially fee structure per hour.
The only request I have, I don't dispute your scoring. It doesn't surprise me that it turned out this relative to each other, just based on their submittal. But I think for the benefit of the township, we need to know who the team is, who that individual is, and especially with Metz, Bailey, McLaughlin. When you have that many sub-consultants, are we paying for them and you're duplicating services and all of a sudden your fees going through the roof? So my only request would be from each of these is what is the team? They sent a packet full of resumes. I think Bricker and Eckler had maybe 12 to 15 people. Well, we don't need 12 to 15 people. So that would be my only request.
And at this point, do we want to get fees from these people? I mean, that
Well,
might
you
weigh in
select
on our decision.
one
Yeah,
of these and then discuss fee base with that
Right.
one.
okay.
I think if we want to start talking money, that would have been RFQ, not necessarily.
Exactly.
Well, and to your point of having multiple people, while I understand that we would want to know who is our representative and have some consistency, it's good to know that there's more than one person here, that if something happens, they get hit by the proverbial truck, that there's someone that can take over. And, you know, we've got some continuity.
You probably just see that it's the lead in the back of it. Off has that, right? And he also has someone there in case he can't be there.
Yeah.
But soon that's what you get, right?
I was
So
told.
12's too many.
Yes, I was told by both other municipalities that at least Bricker and Eckler, they were given one person. And that one person, they consulted with most of the time. That was their representative.
I believe in the Bricker and Eckler materials, they did point out that, forget the gentleman's name, I'd have to open the paper, that they did point out that there was sort of
One-
going to be a primary person
Yeah.
who they thought was going to be assigned. If Mr. Reinhardt is just a solo individual working, obviously we get him. But I agree, Metz, Bailey, McLaughlin, I also was a little confused. And that's where I felt like the scoring was tight, where like if we get outsourced to the person in Cincinnati, maybe that bumps Bricker and Eckler up because now we're dealing with someone further away as opposed to someone closer. But Bricker and Eckler also had township experience, but Metz, Bailey, and McLaughlin is obviously real close, and I think they're the council, or they were the council for Westerville and have been for like since the late 80s, I think. So I think even Mr. Bailey has even had an interaction with the township, at least once or twice in his history. So some of it is also with the small firm and the big firm is sort of how do you want to view the glass of water? You know, there's pros and cons to each of those, I think, as we know. So it sounds like you want me to go back to all three and at least get a full clarification on who would be the lead or the team we would be assigned. I can do that. I think some of them left it a little broad because frankly, RFQ was a little broad. So I think they weren't, it was a little scattered. So they weren't exactly sure what we were zeroing in on. So that's probably why especially Bricker and Eckler gave us their entire staff because they're probably just not knowing who they're going to pull in until we sit down with them. But yeah, I can do that and report back to you whenever you'd like me to. And I believe Mr. Antoinette said he wanted to score them himself as well. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll just continue this discussion on to the
To
next meeting.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
great.
And I'll get you that information in the interim.
Okay. Now, in order to go to the Hoover watershed, do I close out this meeting?
No,
No,
they
no.
used to do that. I
Okay.
don't believe that's
So
necessary.
you don't have to. All
You can
right.
just open it as a regular public hearing as part of a meeting, just like we always would.
All right, so I'll call the following hearing to order at 7:47. And Genoa Township trustees initiated the zoning text and map amendment ZC 2021-04 to create a Hoover Watershed Overlay District, Article 7, along with minimal amendments to current articles related to the creation of said district and zoning administration continued from May 3rd, 2022. If anyone is here and would like to speak, I'll ask that you stand and be sworn in at this time. All right. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thanks, Joe. All right, and at that, the following exhibits were added or updated. Exhibit J, all public comments received between September 2nd, 2021 and June 7th, 2022. At that, I'll turn it over to Joe for the staff report.
I really don't have much of an update this evening. Really, the purpose of this hearing was to see what happened with the RFQ and then determine our path forward with the watershed overlay. So since it sounds like there's going to be a little bit of ongoing conversation with the RFQ, perhaps it would behoove us to continue this hearing to your next regular July meeting, and again, sort of do the same thing where we see things, where things lead with the RFQ. Unless there's any other topics or other meetings you want to schedule to start diving into stuff, but it seems like we're at the point where I feel like until you bring that legal person on board and I think answer some of the board's questions, it seems like we're sort of at a standstill until we can get some of those questions answered and the board can start having some further discussions and making some decisions on how you want to move forward.
I would just like to remind everyone that the longer we allow this to be pushed down the road, the more opportunities there are for developers to come in with plans that we must address under our current zoning resolution without any additional restrictions.
It is unfortunate. I get it, but I wanted, again, it's all about the right fix. I don't want to just put a Band-Aid on this and rip it off. So I would like to, if we're going to fix this, let's fix it the right way, not just approve an overlay that I have questions about and I still haven't gotten answers. I did speak with Mark Fowler last week, and he said he still has the questions about whether an overlay can be put on the ballot for referendum, and anything after that, he hasn't gotten back to us yet. So I can't support something that I still have questions on. I need legal counsel first. So I'm waiting on that. And I agree, but the zoning was increased throughout the township in January of 19. It's been like that since January of 19. I personally didn't like that decision, but we're stuck with it at this point. I would like to fix it, but I'm just not gonna, I need to go about this the right way.
And I would probably phrase that differently, that the zoning was not increased across the township, but we were told that we could have one zoning plan across the township, and we needed to harmonize the comprehensive plan and the zoning resolution, and that's what was done. And the impact was to increase the density in planning areas 4, 5, 2, 3 if they get sewer, but it really did not, it was not to increase the density.
I'll disagree, but that's okay.
We can agree to disagree.
Yeah, it's okay. At this point, I think continuing this until our July meeting, I don't foresee us being able to make a decision at the July meeting if we don't have our legal counsel at that point, and I don't know that we'll be ready to hire anybody.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I think just continuing this to the July meeting just helps from a procedural standpoint,
Okay.
because we'll open it, you continue this hearing to a date, time, place certain, you open that hearing, and even if we open it and we continue it again, at least we've gone on the record, opened
Okay.
it, continued it on the record, so we don't, because what we're really trying to avoid is having to go back and advertising and
Right.
adding even more lag time into the process. So,
Okay, that's fine. So I'm in favor of postponing until the July meeting.
We need a motion on that?
yes, please.
Before I do that, don't want to skip over public comment. Anybody else? Nobody else was sworn in. All right. Where would that
Top of
motion?
page 4.
Okay.
I believe that's July 7th?
Yes.
Is the next meeting?
All right, I'll move to continue the public hearing for the subject zoning text map amendment dated February 14th, 2022, to create a Hoover Watershed Overlay District along with minor related modifications, also known as ZC case number 2021-04, until July 7th at 6:30 PM in the Township Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes,
Mr. Antonetts?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
motion carries.
Thank you. I did have one other thing I was going to bring up just real quick, if that's all right with the board.
Sure.
I mentioned this to a couple of board members I talked to earlier this week, but I wanted to let you all know that slowly but surely, we are moving ahead with the document management system conversion of replacing Doculex, which those of you who have been paying attention to these meetings has known has been 5-6 years in the making. We first had to wait for our master IT system to get into place, and then we had to sort of wait for the county to be ready for the process, and then we had to wait for the vendor to be ready for the process. But we're finally here. So we actually did a test conversion late last week, and my team and I spent a lot of time tediously going through 180 documents, making sure all the metadata matched up and the scan was the same and all of that. So there's probably going to be another test conversion we're going to have to do because we did make some tweaks. But we're hoping the documents will be converted over here in the next week or two. And then the real work begins, because what we know is the next step we have to go through is go through, because Doculex was such a mess, and go through all the libraries, thousands of documents, and figure out what's there and what's not there, number one.
and then clean up the stuff that is there, so the data's in it is good, and then we can start entering stuff in. There will be a public-facing portion of this portal that the public will be able to access and look for records. Unfortunately, it sounds like there's some updates happening at the county level, and it gets into very hyper-technical stuff that I'm not quite sure I even understand when they start telling me it, but the gist of it is, it's not quite ready yet. So I'll keep the board apprised on that, but just wanted to let you know that project is moving forward, and we'll eventually get there. It's the best momentum we've had in years on it, so I'm excited that we're finally getting to this point. So just wanted to mention that to you. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
May I ask a procedural question?
Yes,
Did we close out that hearing?
no,
Oh,
we did not.
I believe we need to do that.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So I'll move to close the hearing at 8:55 PM. Do I have a second? Sorry, yes, 7:55,
You don't
sorry.
even need, I don't think you need a motion.
No,
You just
no,
need to
okay,
announce that it's
okay.
closed.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. Anything else? I'm going to read announcements. All right, announcements. June 9th, Communications Advisory Committee. June 11th, movie at McNamara Park is Sing 2. June 13th is the Zoning Commission meeting. June 20th, the offices will be closed for Juneteenth. June 25th, Trailapalooza Gateway Ribbon Cutting. June 28th, the BZA meeting. July 4th, the offices are closed. July 6th, Parks Advisory Committee, and the next regular trustee meeting will be July 7th, 2022. All right, at this time, I'll move to adjourn to executive session at 7:56 PM to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, and compensation of a public employee. Do I have a second?
Second?
Invited to this executive session is Linda Greco and Bob Matthews. Roll call.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes,
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
thank you. At this time, we're adjourned. Yep. Thank you. At this time, I move to return from executive session to regular session to the regular trustee meeting at 9:22 PM. Do I have a second?
Second?
Roll call?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Mr. Antonez?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes. At this time, there is no more business to come before the board, so I will move to adjourn this meeting at 9:22 PM. Do I have a second?
Second?
Roll call?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Mr. Antonez?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes. At this time, we're adjourned. It's 9:22.